Tiger. Before we even continue about the keyboards, we have our friend here who designed this amazing 早安你好 good morning Desmond. So the shit that it includes: top bottom case, polycarb plate, PCB foam, switch pads, silicone socks, design tape mod. Oh, this thing. Yes, design tape mod. So apparently they decided to skip the whole idea of making a tape mod, but you have to apply strips of tape yourself, and they just made it into a whole sticker. The first thing that stands out to me, honestly, when I first saw this board, the way it's mounted and the way that they do the price point, right, it kind of reminds me of the QK65. How I would imagine this to be is just a decal version of the QK65, where you have a very, very similar gasket sock that mounts around these little leaf tabs. We don't know how it sounds yet, but we're gonna find out. Initial impression is that it's like a QK65. It doesn't mean that it will be. So because we've touched this case before, you can see there's a lot of streaks already, so whatever. This is the design of the back. So you can see that these little parts here are cut more shallow than the rest of this. But what I do like about this is that the side profile does look quite nice. So there's a little curve here, which I do kind of like boards with this second segmented area of a curve here, so that it kind of just makes the board easier to pick up from the side. So just like this. The main reason we have another board with us is that we're going to compare it to one of Wei's earlier releases, which is a board at a higher price point. It features a different mounting. So this is a top mount keyboard instead of a gasket mounted one. The meta is changed clearly. Much heavier because you can see the presence of a massive brass weight over here. Fundamentally, the design looks very, very simple, very similar. So you can see it's just simple triangular 7-degree typing angle. This is honestly one of the most similar. It's basically just a predecessor of this. There's no real difference other than the fact that it uses a different mounting system, different PCB, doesn't have your daughter board, it's not gasket mounted, and has a brass weight on it.
So the point of us bringing here is to draw a comparison on how the hobby has changed from 2019.
In a sense, yeah. And it's from the same designer, so we should largely expect about a similar kind of design philosophy and all that. So we'll compare that. But first things first, before we build it, we must stick on the feet because that's always important. No free feet pics. First real difference here, the feet has clearly evolved to big flap ones instead of the black rubbly nibbly nipple shit that they had. Now we get to our favorite part.
Step tuning.
This foam goes on top of the PCB, in between the switches and the PCB. Feels like EVA foam to me. Interesting thing is they actually made flex cards for this shit. Makes sense, yes, but this has to go on first before we install the stabilizers. So small issue that I have with this, or might not even really be a factor, but it's just something I find a little weird. The shims usually, or at least in most of the other boards I built that use shims, are supposed to go on the underside where it basically sits there and the stabilizers clip into it and hook onto it. But because there is a little tiny design fault, there are diodes literally blocking the entire installation area of the shims itself. You cannot install the shims unless they're on the top side of it. Whether this really affects anything, God knows. We're going to be installing the switches after this, so it'll just be another major time skip to just watch the sped up hyperlapse of this.
You should start dancing.
For the whole thing? Let's do it.
Yeah, do it.
You want to do it for the whole 30 minutes I'm going to take to install the switches?
Oh!
These are gasket socks. So, like I mentioned earlier in the video, it reminds me of the QK because, it goes over this little tab like that. So the gasket sock goes over the tab like so, and then that's it.
And then
just
we
held
repeat
on.
that 20 times.
Jesus Christ!
Not bad.
What the hell?
It do the flex.
It do flex though.
It do flex though.
It do
flex though.
Dude, it's bottoming out.
Yeah.
Keycaps.
Keycaps.
Where the hell are the
Where do we put the
keycaps?
keycap?
We have the AKKO ASA Profile Clear PC with printed characters.
Oh! Sounds like foam.
Sounds good to me. Alright, final thoughts. Let's see, this keyboard itself, I mean, I expected it to sound very much like a QK, and it kind of does sound like a QK. You can hear the very, very foamy kind of feeling. And this is a tactile switch as well, and a completely stock tactile switch. So, you know, it's essentially just a decal version of the QK65 done differently. Kind of tasteful. I mean, I like that it's got the F13 layout, so you know this part is very, very symmetrical, and the fixed 7U bottom row means that your keycaps must be 7U to do this. And with these keycaps, which I know aren't exactly the best sounding keycaps, because polycarbonate keycaps can always sound a little hollow and weird. Flex is ridiculous. So you can see this is basically hitting the bottom really. Then that goes for every single corner around it. So I guess it kind of works because it's using a thin PCB as well as a polycarbonate plate, which is already soft to begin with. In normal typing, it won't matter at all because you're not going to be like typing with that much force anytime. At most just like that, you know. Barely any flex, a bit of a bounce, but other than that, not so much. I'll just like briefly touch on the comparisons between its predecessor as well. So this was built like maybe a year and a half ago. Similar tactile switches, but the clear sound difference is that it's a lot more muted, a lot more higher pitch, because the thing is, right, as with most top-mounted keyboards, one big factor of the way the keyboard sounds is because the entire assembly of the plate PCB mounts into the top case. The top case acts as a part of the propagation of sound itself. It helps propagate the sound. This being aluminum and screwed to the bottom case, the entire keyboard sounds this way because the whole case itself contributes to the sound. Whereas this, because it's isolated by the rubber socks, most of the sound comes purely from the switches, keycaps, and the plate itself. So you can see it's a lot deeper sounding as compared to this. So the keycaps, I would say there's definitely differences in that because different profiles, different manufacturers, different materials. I would say the hobby has come quite a long way as well, because the move towards having more in-stock stuff, cheaper things, more of these like hype features that people want, like, oh, I want gasket mount, I want tape mount, I want this PE foam, this, that, blah, blah, blah. KBDFans has kind of achieved it with this at the cost of certain other things, but it's something I would buy if I want to introduce people to the hobby, because it's definitely very simple, very nice looking. We likely won't be carrying this, but you know, if you're interested in this board, it's available on KBDFans website, which is kbdfans.com. They do ship worldwide. Just do know that shipping can be a bit expensive because everything's expensive now. I mean, these are our final thoughts pretty much. It's a good, nice board. If you like it, get it.
You can come down to mecha.store and try it out before making your purchase.
Yeah, see, nice case that comes along with it as well. Tiger!
Boing.
Peace and love.